I don't want to make it sound like this, but we kind of need that acceptance
Acceptance by who of what?
by the people, by the internet. We love to be admired. We every time we post a new image of a artwork that we work for hours, of course we're gonna want to be seen. Okay, so Austin, hi. Everybody, hi.
Hi. So yeah, it is 8 in the morning here in Melbourne, Australia.
Yeah, it's
Which, if you
3
want
p.m.
to sound
here.
like, if you want to sound like a local, they all say Melbourne, but I refuse
Melbourne.
to do that. Melbourne. Either way, the city, as an American, I proudly pronounce it Melbourne.
Melbourne.
Um, but it is funny how the R does make me
Yeah.
feel like a foreigner when I'm
I
here.
will say
I go Melbourne.
Melbourne.
Yeah, exactly, Melbourne. Yeah.
Melbourne.
So yes, I will be back. Uh, Probably by the time this is released, I'll already be back. But yes, I appreciate the patience and any weirdness. Like I can hear my squeaky chair and possibly my laptop fan. So this may not be the most high quality audio recording we've ever had, but I'm
That's okay.
grateful
Yeah, it's
for
probably
understanding.
like they can't imagine you also fancying that hotel room. So,
My very normal hotel room. But I'll say this: this is my 22nd coffee
why are you counting coffees first off?
because it's like each one feels like a special occasion. So, the first time I came to Australia was in 20. Let me think. 2013 or 2014.
For
I
work?
got. I, yeah, I've only ever been here for some kind of music related task. I've never been a pure tourist vacation here.
Mm.
The first time I came was to conduct Journey with the Queensland Symphony in Brisbane.
Mm.
And actually, it was an extremely awesome. This was not that long after Journey came out, and I get a cold email from this guy who has since become a very good friend and who I've been hanging out with this week while I'm here. A guy named Andrew, and he reached out to me on behalf. He was working for the Melbourne Symphony here, but he was like a video game nerd who also worked in the classical music, world. And so anytime an orchestra goes, we want to do, anytime an Australian orchestra would say, we want to do a concert of video game music, he would be the guy that they like grab and borrow and go, help us do this. We don't know what we're doing. So he called me and goes, hey, I'm working on behalf of this other orchestra, the Queensland Symphony. Do you want to come? Actually, he just said, can we just borrow sheet music for Journey and play it? And I was like, can I come? And will you pay for it? And he was like, it was one of those where they basically had just enough budget to bring me out to
Nice.
conduct Journey. And then the best thing was I go, out of curiosity, what else is on the show? And he goes, get this. Bear in mind, this is the first time we've ever talked. He doesn't know me. He goes, there's a really famous video game score that's never been done live in concert. And so I reached out to the composer and we made a special version of it for the orchestra. And it's going to be the first time ever that this music is done live in concert. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. What score is it? And he goes, Grim Fandango. And I was
Oh.
like, what? I said, dude, that's like maybe my favorite game music of all time. So I said,
Wow.
what would it take to let me conduct Journey and that? And he goes, I don't care. Go ahead. So I got to conduct this childhood favorite, the first ever orchestral performance of Grim Fandango on planet Earth on that trip.
Amazing.
And it was freaking awesome. And then the other thing that happened is I showed up and I got a cup of coffee and I was like, damn, this is good coffee. And then I went and got another cup of coffee and was like, this is really great coffee too. I did not know. I always assumed it was
Yeah.
more like your part of the world where all the best coffee is supposed to be from. Central and South America is like where it's supposedly. But all of Australia is fanatical about coffee. So now when I come here, it's like the thing I dream about, and it's like I just want to drink coffee all day, every day. So yes, I've been keeping
Like
track
you're
of
not,
my
you're
coffee.
not. Yeah, but you're making it sound like you never have coffee, which is untrue. Like you're just
But this is
repeating
so
your
special.
daily life. But
Well, yeah, it's just each one feels so special. I've been here a few days,
oh
and
my
I've
god,
managed to have a couple of coffees each day. So this is literally my coffee number 22.
are you? Are they all that good? Isn't it like in your? Aren't you just biased?
No, they're just so good. And you talk to people here, and I'm like, "Am I crazy? Am I overblowing this?" And they're like, "No, we're very proud of it. It's the
Nice.
real deal." And the sad
We'll
thing
see.
is,
We'll see.
well, it's nothing I can bring back is the problem. Like because we don't have an espresso machine, and it's all espresso. They don't do drip coffee. And
Oh.
and also it's not that like they have all the best beans and blah blah blah. It's that they know how to make it. It's like, so if I brought it back, it would basically be normal, even if we had the machine. So that's why it's like I just got to keep coming back to Australia.
Nice. Oh my god, the most expensive coffee you ever taken.
That may be true. That's a good point. But anyway, so yes, that's what's going on with me here. It's
Lovely.
It's very exciting. I took a trip for some coffee.
Nice.
What do you think of today's topic?
Well, this was your suggestion. So,
Well, okay. It is one of those that could easily be a subject repeatedly, I think, because there's probably a lot of different angles to think of it through. But just this general question of the way we had it written down was the artist versus the audience.
yes.
And I think that that's a funny framing because the verses makes it sound like it's a battle,
It's a
like
battle.
it's sort of a
In most cases, it is a battle.
well, so we're already into it then because
Yeah.
that's to me what struck is like the paraphrasing of it was essentially who is the art for?
Yes.
The artist or the audience, like the listener or the viewer or the player, blah blah blah. I have a lot of thoughts on this, but I don't remember actually who initially like wrote this down in our little document. What is your
Well, I guess it comes down like for basically just to put it like simple, we make art, we share it online in order to be noticed. That's mostly what artists are doing today.
Sure.
It's rare to find an artist that creates for themselves. Like that is too rare. You got to meet somebody that used to do that.
Yeah, I was
they
gonna say.
didn't they didn't care about the exposure, or it was just the pleasure of creating. Simple as that. But that's we're talking about somebody that grew up in a completely different era.
Well, also,
So-
who you're referring to is my cousin Sonia Eisenberg, who was a painter and kind of a shut-in. She was very sick her whole life, and just to add some context, Sonia was among the family members who grew up in Germany right before Hitler came to power. And as a bunch of Berlin Jews, they had to flee in 1938 to come to the U.S. to avoid literal death. Some of the family members did die. She was basically a teenager at the time. She moved to New York City with her brother and her parents and the rest of the family. Eventually, young, in her 20s, she met a guy named Jack Eisenberg. So she was Sonia Weinberger and then got married to Jack Eisenberg. And got married in her 20s, so she was married very young. And then she was early 20s diagnosed with this disease called polyneuritis that they had no real treatment for, no real ability to like even mitigate symptoms. Like never mind.
I had no idea
cure.
she was that young when they discovered that.
She was more or less told you'll be unlikely to live to age 30.
Jesus.
And she lived to age 90. And so she was like, I'm going to focus on my health. And she always ate well, and she would do exercise. And
Probably
she would,
that's why.
oh yeah, she worked really hard, and it was difficult for her,
Yeah.
and there was always
I
problems. And
bet.
in her 20s, she said she would basically lie on the floor and scream in pain, and
Oh my
like it was
God.
just absolute torture. But as if none of that was bad enough, she had a child. She had initially two sons, and the first one got leukemia at age 10, and knew he wasn't going to live, and so he, almost like this old soul, he went one day and got her a set of paints and paintbrush and brought it to her and said, you need something to do. Basically, you need a distraction. And so, she was like, I don't know, about 30, I'm guessing, maybe as late as 35, but I think she was probably like 31, 32. And her son, who died at age 10, had basically given her this gift of paints. And she spent the next 60 years honoring his wish. So that, to her, that was effectively her mission as a painter, was, I don't care if I'm famous. I don't care if people like it. I don't care. She always wanted the paintings to find a home.
Right.
But it was kind of like, it was almost like, if you imagine if you raise like puppies and you really want them to find like a loving home, you like care for them, and then someone comes along and is like, I'd like a puppy, and you like want to make sure that it's going somewhere,
Right.
like that it's going to be loved.
Yeah.
And that's almost every time I witnessed her dealing with selling a painting, it always seemed like that. She was like, I really hope that they appreciate it and that it brings them some
I mean,
calm.
yeah, of course. So many hours of work, and yeah, I get it completely.
And it was about the idea that, she would charge a ton of money for her paintings, but I think part of it, of course, she believed they were valuable. I mean, she was not clueless when it came to things like commerce, but she also, I think she wanted to make sure that somebody actually cared enough about it, and they would
Right.
prove it by how much they paid.
Exactly.
Because she cared. I remember one of her little catchphrases that she had gotten from her teacher, this guy named Delavanta, was, he looked at one of her paintings and goes, this is great, but you didn't love the corners. And that always stuck with her as like, you have to love every millimeter of this canvas and treat it with love. And that made such an impression on me when I met her. I was 18. I was a music student at NYU, and we would have dinner every Friday. I eventually moved into her apartment before I left New York City, and we were really, really close. And she was like this spirit guide for me. And so anyway, yeah, she's one of the only examples ever. I appreciate you indulging this long tangent.
I can't think of anybody else. I really can't think
And she
of
was
any.
very lucky because her husband, who had died in the 80s, and so I never met him. He was long gone by the time I met her. He had left her a sizable nest egg, and they owned their apartment outright. They didn't. I mean, they paid taxes and stuff, but she didn't have like rent payments in the conventional sense. So she just had her living expenses, and she had hired help. This wonderful woman named Adelaide. She basically was able to just live with her money problem, not having any money problems. So she was very lucky, or you dare I say privileged, which gave her the ability to paint for herself
Yeah,
alone.
that's another thing. The need to create to earn money, to be able to eat. That's what's happening.
Correct. She did not have any danger of missing, the bills if a painting didn't sell that month.
Right.
And so that put her in a unique situation. And there have been occasional artists. There's a famous composer example, I would say, that's kind of similar. There's a composer named Charles Ives, who was sort of born in the late 1800s, and he's considered one of the single most important American composers in history, but only after his death, because no one had any idea how genius he was while he was alive. It's the classic story where he was an insurance salesman who made millions of dollars selling insurance, and he would write music and put it in his drawer, and it was almost never performed during his lifetime. but he was this wealthy guy who would support orchestras and was like, one of these kind of benefactors to the arts. And then when people would go and discover his music later, they realized he was supremely innovative, and he was doing like genuine, like someday we'll do another episode about the concept of the avant-garde, but this was a guy who was doing in many ways like the most interesting version of what the avant-garde can mean. For example, he grew up in like small town, kind of middle America, not in the suburban sense, but like the old town square kind of idea, where you would have like the long central road and there'd be a little band playing, like dun 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 type classic sort of,
right.
Americana marching band kind of music. The stories are that he would hear a band like on one end of town playing one song, and then just within earshot on the other side of town a different band playing, and he would listen to two different pieces of music at the same time and just found that so interesting. So he would write pieces that do that, where it's like half the orchestra is playing one thing and the other half of the orchestra is playing something completely unrelated, and no one had ever done anything like. I mean, this was and it's because he was like this weirdo outsider, and he wasn't responding to commissions. He wasn't being hired. He just was letting his imagination wander, and then he would put it in a drawer, and everybody later found this stuff and was like, holy hell, this was he was like 100 years ahead of his time.
That's amazing. That's funny that you're telling me this story, and it kind of like connects with something that I was gonna bring up later. But
what's that?
A little game that I have for later, I guess.
If you've got it prepared, then we won't forget.
Yeah.
But yeah, so those are rare examples. Most people, even some of the most famous, like in composers throughout history, Mozart and Beethoven and Haydn, and the vast majority of them worked for someone who was paying them, and they, had like responsibilities.
They had to they had to do it because it's what they were asked to do.
And there were expectations about how the final product would sound or be. And
right.
And so we tend to mythologize this idea that they're all artists, all great artists, are kind of like Sonia and just sort of alone in a room creating out of some impulse and very personal kind of need to self-satisfy. When in reality, most are interacting with people in a kind of normal,
right,
commercial way. And I think let me frame it as a question for you. When you're doing a commission, I'm trying to think of a recent example. Okay, like you did this painting for the Descartes. If this was something that, like, there's a spectrum. If it was purely for yourself, but you're like doing it for a commission, but basically you don't care what they think. Like, if that's one extreme, right? On the other extreme is all I care about is if they like it. It doesn't matter to me if I think the painting is bad. As long as they're happy, then whatever. Then who cares?
Yeah, I guess it depends of the person, obviously. If they
But are you capable of truly not caring and just being like...
No, I will always try to put my stamp on whatever I do, obviously, because doing exactly what they ask me to, I'm not a designer. Like, that's what they do. I'm not a web designer. I'm not I don't know. I can't think of anything else right now.
Just to point at that, though, that's an interesting thing, because I would argue, in my idealistic, optimistic way, that a graphic designer who's being given very precise instructions can still be an artist.
Yes, it can still be an artist, but it's another spectrum. Like, because I know what I'm talking about, because I lived that. I used to do those kind of commissions, like to make logos or whatever you can. Yeah.
Didn't you do like a restaurant menu?
Those kind of things that it's just like, you can't be creative. You can't open your heart to a logo or to, it's hard to do that. Obviously, I don't want to diminish the art that they put in those works, but those are what the client asks for. Like, you can't just go your way to create something that they didn't, if they don't feel like what you think is best for their business, if they don't feel that that fits, you just are not gonna deliver that. Of course, they're gonna be unsatisfied and probably they're not gonna pay you. So, and that it happens, and that happens. Yeah, they just Why are they gonna pay for something they didn't ask for? So, I that's why I don't do those anymore. It's very frustrating, and I will definitely prefer to work for somebody that trusts in what I do, that likes what I do, and that knows deep inside that I'm gonna deliver something that they are gonna like, and I guess that's it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I it's easy for me to go, but everybody can be an artist. I mean, look, I don't. It's easy for me to say that, and yet, 100% mirroring what you just said. I don't do TV commercials.
I was gonna say it's probably, it might be like a jingle thing, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not saying jingles are not creative, but it kind of falls into that category of like.
It can be 100%. It can be very, very creative, but it also is like the kind of thing where the client, whoever, if it's like an advertising thing and, McDonald's needs a piece of music for a commercial, they're going to have 50 different people giving notes and feedback, and they're going to be really, 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 really specific. Like on the 9th note, it goes down. Can it go up? Like they get really, really, really particular. And to me, it's not fun. I have a lot of admiration for the composer friends of mine that have made amazing livings. Movie trailers are the same.
Some people, they're just fine doing it. Like they don't crave.
They actually like it. They really into it.
Yes, they just get the instructions and get the shit done, and that is what it is. And they just go back home, and they don't have to think about work anymore until the next day. So that's a way of living.
Yeah, it is. So I think not either of us though. It is weird how I would actually rather. This sounds very romanticized, but I'd rather suffer for something that pays me less than like the job that I don't have any. I won't have any of myself. Again, back to this question: who is it for? If I don't have any opportunity to really make it mine to a degree, right? And it sounds very narcissistic to put.
No, but it's what it is. Like, I know that most of our listeners are artists, and I know that they completely agree with this, because that's why we're not teachers, or I'm just speaking from my experience, because I back in Costa Rica, the only thing that I could like make money from, like related to art, was to become a teacher, like an art teacher, and that felt very. I don't click with it.
Yeah. You said you didn't have the patience to be a good teacher.
Yeah, that's another story. But yeah, I don't have the patience to deal with people. But because I don't have the time to be a free soul, and I want to do that. I want to create, and I want to feel, and I want to portray what I'm feeling in the canvas, and I don't want to be instructed to paint in X color.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting because there's a lot of sort of internal contradiction that I fully admit to here, because another angle on it is it's very important to me to be able to be self-expressive and explorational and go somewhere that I've never been. Like for example, if someone plays a game like, Journey, and then they go, some other company comes along and says, we're making a game that's like a big love letter to Journey, and we'd love to hire you to basically do Journey again because we just love it so much and we want it for our thing. Then my response is like, even if I say yes to the job, my goal is actually to figure out a way to not repeat.
To not be. Mm-hmm. You kind of felt that way with the new version of the album, with the 10th anniversary. You were struggling with that. Like, you don't want it to sound like it, but you need to make it sound like it.
Yeah, well, and I definitely remember feeling that on Abzu, where it was like, I want to make sure that you would never confuse this with Journey. because the game is very different from Journey, but it's very obviously kind of like the it's like the daughter of Journey in many respects. And so it was important to Matt and to me that it would have really like it can be part of the lineage, but it needs to have noticeable differences.
Yeah.
And so, the point being, though, here I am accepting a job where the premise is we have a very specific thing we want you to do, and that's like the condition of the job. And I'm finding ways to sort of hopefully give them what they want while also doing something else that's just kind of for my benefit, you know? And it's interesting, 'cause, so the part I was going to mention that's contradictory, and this is a little less true, I think, in the world of fine art and painting, but you tell me if you agree. The thing that I love the most, honestly, about what I do, about being a composer, is the collaboration, which ironically also removes a lot of my soul identity, you know, where one of my little catchphrases when I'm working with a director on a game or a movie or whatever is I'll say, the goal is not my music in your thing, your movie, your game. It's our music in our thing. I want it to feel like they influence the music so much that it's something I could never have written by myself. And also, by that music then makes such a meaningful impact on the game or the film that it wouldn't have been the same without me. So we're both like intermarried, you know, we're like interwoven into the project together.
Yeah.
And the best examples I've had, you know, a movie like The Rendezvous or like Bullethead with Paul. Like these are things where they push the score somewhere I would never have gone on my own.
Right.
And I love that.
But you're talking about work. Like I would like to put this on the personal aspect, like your
you mean like
work.
Okay, that's an interesting distinction. So
yes, because depending on the client, I think it's better to talk about it this way, because for work you just have to stick with the plan. So that is not up to you. Obviously, you're hired to do something and you deliver, and hopefully it goes well and everybody's happy. But for like a personal project, does it affect people's reaction? Which I think it does. Well, at least to me, yes, I do feel affected by the lack of reaction on my work on social media, which is something that every artist is passing through. I've seen it on Twitter. They're like struggling. Instagram has become this new TikTok that everybody hates. Posting images is not reliable anymore. It doesn't go anywhere. Nobody sees it. So we suffer, we don't sell, and we have to see how to put our work, how to make it fit in the new spectrum of like video and clips, and I don't know, which based on what the people I know, we are a very how to say it, we're a bunch of introverts. So we're not gonna like show up and dance and make 100 videos a day just to to get engagement. It's just a little battle that I've seen lately, these days, in social media specifically. So
it does highlight. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you bring that up, because the idea that if I make the art just for myself and I don't care about the audience, then none of that what you just said matters.
Of course. But that is your job. You need the audience. At some point, you need them to see it in order to pay for it, so you can eat.
Well, I think it can even be more sort of deep than that.
Well, yeah.
Like the idea of, is a painting more valuable if it's on a wall that people will be able to appreciate it? Like if a hotel lobby buys a painting and puts it so that 1,000 people a day can walk past it or stop and see it. Is it more valuable than, let's say they didn't pay for it. Let's say you donate it.
Mm-hmm.
is it more valuable there with the audience, unpaid for, than also unpaid for, but in a room by like in your studio at home and not seen by anybody?
Of course, I
Like,
prefer the hotel.
yes, so then the audience is valuable beyond the idea that they pay for it. It's the like it is actually made for other people to see.
Yeah, it's so hard for me to think of just working on something for hours or days and never show it to anybody. Which I at some point thought on doing a series of like a series of paintings, like sexual paintings, and I was like, this doesn't go with my branding. So I do want to do them, but I don't know if I want to put them out there with my name. But at this point, honestly, if you want to sell, just go for it. I guess.
Yeah, but it's an interesting music is, especially unless you're talking about electronic music, which is one of the only kind of exceptions to this. But generally speaking, music is kind of a communal activity.
Yeah.
So for other people is baked in, whether it's making the music with other people, like a band or an orchestra, or just the idea of like, it's a tree falling in the woods, does it make a sound? Does music have any value if played for no one? I mean, it really, to me, it strikes me as utterly valueless. So the audience matters a lot. Now, there is still this philosophy of, do you feel like I'm going to be fiercely individualistic and the only audience I'll find are the people that like what I do?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it, I want to make things that I hope the audience really likes, and you try to kind of anticipate what they will respond to?
Mm-hmm.
I actually really like the idea. Many of my greatest heroes are entertainers. Yes, today is Leonard Bernstein's 104th birthday.
Today.
Today.
Wow. Happy birthday.
Yeah,
Happy
he would
birthday,
be 104
Lenny.
if he was
Wow.
still alive. And he was in so many ways like he once said, even if he was writing the most serious symphony or opera or string quartet or whatever, he recognized that fundamentally he was a theater composer.
Mm-hmm.
He was an entertainer in
Right.
that classic sense. He wasn't this Beethoven, I'm just alone with my piano and going mad.
Right.
He was like putting on a show, even if he was writing a piece for solo piano. And I first off, that was absolutely true, and I love that he had the self-awareness to see that about himself, which is just great. But I also I tend to relate to that. It took me a long time to really kind of understand that about myself, and it's part of what makes him one of my heroes. Is the audience is so important to me. I want to make sure that I am communicating with them and that they feel like they get something out of this that adds value.
Of course.
So I have to think about them. And earlier you made it sound like, yeah, but that's for work. And I'm like, well,
no, but just to make it more, more
sort of like
balanced.
a pure experiment.
Yes.
I get it. But it's also one of those where it's like, I chose this work because it speaks to my artistic desires. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this work lets me be an artist and actually get paid for it, as opposed to, I do a day job as a composer, but the real art is like my private music. Mm-hmm. Ironically, someone like John Williams might actually, I would think he's being delusional, but he would potentially make this case, the way I've heard him speak in interviews, where he writes his own music, like chamber music or a violin concerto. He recently wrote a new violin concerto for Anne and Sophie Mutter, and he's supposedly going to start working on a piano concerto next. And he's going to retire from film to focus only on this kind of music.
That's awesome.
He wants to, it's like music that he won't take payment for. He won't and he has no deadline. He'll you get it when you get it.
Yeah.
And he wrote a harp concerto for the principal of the Boston Symphony, if memory serves, a few years ago. And so it's like personal projects, and he considers writing film scores to be his day job. And I think that that's a little silly to think of it as like one is art and one is business, because he's one of the greatest artists to ever write film music. And he elevated the art. He made the entire public aware of the orchestra. I mean, he did things that no one else has ever done. But he definitely seems like, no, when I write music, I'm going to write and you can definitely tell the difference. The music he writes for just himself sounds nothing like his film scores. It's far less enjoyable, to be blunt. Like, it's,
oh wow,
you listen to it and you're like, he sounds like a generic mid 20th century classical composer.
Oh my god.
I mean,
maybe you're just biased.
It's not
just
generic,
like him,
but no,
so
it's
much.
not. It's not. It's just not just me. I mean, if I was wrong, his violin concerto would be just as popular as the theme to E.T. and Jurassic Park, but people don't want to hear it because they listen to it.
We don't hear it because we don't have the ability to know that. I, as a regular consumer of,
it's all on Spotify and on YouTube and
but I don't know. I'm not going looking for whatever works he's done. Like, I go see the movies, so I'm not aware of his other works.
I mean,
that's why it's not. Yeah,
it's a fair point, but I guarantee you, if I played it for you, you would not enjoy it, or at best, you would appreciate it on a kind of intellectual level and go, yeah, I understand. He comes from a generation where things like a melody you can hum along to and things like that was considered quite almost offensive for classical music. Like, that was considered. I mean, you remember when I took you to Disney Hall that first time and you heard a piece you hated. He comes from that same generation, of people that think that's what modern music is. And if you're writing for yourself, it actually, to the point of our question, it reached such an extreme that if a piece started to become like popular, it was almost like, now you're a sellout and you failed.
Oh my god!
The audience is actually like a curse. You don't want the audience.
That is so funny.
It's so stupid.
Sometimes I think the audience have the power to change an artist's views, and a lot of people just follow the masses. A lot of artists just do what they are asked to, what they see is popular. And I always feel a little bothered by that, but each one can do whatever they want. I do whatever I want. I prefer to just do what I am inspired to do and not fall into, the bandwagon. But
I remember once going to a concert with Andrea. We went and saw the Pacific Symphony was doing the world premiere of a piece they commissioned of Elliot Goldenthal. And Goldenthal came out on stage at the beginning of the show, and they said, you come from a very classical background. You're a student of John Corigliano, one of the most famous American classical composers alive today. And yet you've mostly done film music. You haven't done much classical music compared to film music or opera or things like that. And he goes, it's simple. I was told, go where you find work. Go where you're wanted. And just exploit that. And he found film scoring, and so he did film scoring. Wow. And it was to him very kind of like, if he'd had more success writing symphonies, he would have done symphonies. And it wasn't really, there was no, and I think that there's a fairness to that. Like, remember when you made those paintings a few years ago that was like the fruit with the skulls, the little tiny skulls? It was just like a thing that you kind of did for, that just kind of occurred to you, and you did a series of these smallish paintings. Let's just say that went crazy viral online, and it was like you could barely paint them fast enough because people just had to have them. They just really took off in popularity. You would keep making them because you're like, wow, everyone wants them, and so you would be directly responding to the audience.
Of course.
And I see nothing wrong with that. I see
There's
that
nothing wrong. It's nothing wrong because on this case in particular, I made them because I wanted to, not because I saw something that exploded, so I'm now making those fruit because fruit is popular.
Oh, I see. You meant like artists following trends of other artists.
Just trends in general. Whatever the internet, I just, whatever.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
very,
something we've definitely never done.
yeah, I just do what I like. And yeah, so I don't want to make it sound like this, but we kind of need that acceptance. I don't know how to,
Acceptance by who of what?
by the people, by the internet. We love to be admired. We every time we post a new image of a artwork that we work for hours, of course we're gonna want to be seen. We that's what we're looking for, right? I'm just simply just.
But you can't force people. I mean, look, I get that. I get that things like Instagram changing the focus of their algorithm is makes it so that, you know, if you're like doing silly TikTok style videos of dancing, like, it's gonna probably spread more. But on some fundamental level, I do have this belief, I might be naive, that like anything has the potential to go viral, and if someone likes it and shares it, and then they share it with two more people, and they share it with two more people, it could truly be anything. And so like we can't. So the frustration is something we all have, of just like I just want people to like it.
Yeah.
And I can't, but I can't force them to.
Yes,
You
you
know,
can't.
and that's like, you know, I think you shouldn't even want to force people to. Like, I want people to like it because they find something valuable
Of
in
course.
it. You know,
Of
again,
course.
this is like my idealistic, but we all have those darker moments of being like, just
But we,
watch
yes,
it, God damn it.
of course, not every artist have the ability to be like, yeah, you know what, I'm just gonna go with the flow because there are bills to pay. You need to fit your work into this spectrum. I don't know how to call it. So anyway, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm probably not going anywhere here. I'm very frustrated right now.
Frustrated
but
by what?
you know, this the same story. It's hard for a freelance artist to make
Yeah.
to settle, to have a I was gonna say to have a specific income every month, like a monthly,
Yeah, like a stable income.
a stable, to have a stable income.
It's true.
But yeah.
Since the dawn of time, artists have had this struggle, because art is in a weird middle. It's in this intersection where it can change the world, it can make people's life fundamentally better, but it will always be less valuable than like buying food and paying the rent and paying your loans and blah 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 blah. So it will always be, on some level, for the average person, buying it will be a luxury to some degree. It's rarely seen as a necessity. Of course.
I think it is a luxury. But this is where things get funny, because when you see that weird, you know, like very low quality work get sold by a huge amount of money.
Subjective, yeah.
I know it's very subjective, but it happens. And you know that. Everybody knows that. So that is when we feel like, dude, what should I do now? How can I make a better work for them to like what I do? What can I change? And it becomes this weird mental.
Yeah, it's
what it is.
It is a fascinating thing. This weird kind of contradiction. My friend Sean, his YouTube video series that is nearing its end, called Out of Frame, just published the second to last one, and the next one he publishes like in a month or whatever will be his final ever of these videos that he's been doing. And they're so great. They're just great videos about the world, and his newest one is about the importance of optimism. I found it very moving. I listened to it this morning while I had breakfast. And this idea that, art can really inform you. Art has the power to inform a worldview that will make your life happier. He talks about how in Lord of the Rings, he thinks Sam is the single most important character because he's the unyielding optimist. He's the one who sees the hope in the world, and he never gives up that hope. And he draws the comparison to the husband in Everything Everywhere All at Once, who basically saves the day.
Oh, my favorite.
Yeah, it's so moving. And it was one of those where you think, these are pieces of commerce, but they contain life lessons and messages. And so it's like it is a piece of luxury. Like, if I don't have extra money to spend, I'm not going to go see Lord of the Rings, or I'm not going to go see any movie or play it or buy a video like a PlayStation 5.
Right.
If there's no extra income for those, like food comes first, and yet those things can contain such powerful messages that make, in a way, life worth living.
It's true.
This is why people make the argument of why there should be like subsidies for the arts and things like that, so that essentially people are guaranteed to get it. I have my doubts about that because I don't like the idea of bureaucrats choosing what kind of art should be paid for. But that's it's a worthy debate because I see see both sides. I really see the value of it. And,
I understand as well.
And it's sort of like, for the nourishment of your soul, should that be a luxury? It feels like maybe it should be elevated. To me it is
a luxury. I guess the only way you can see it as a need is for therapeutic purposes. Like if you make it because you need to, like Sonia. Yeah. Because it helps you.
But there are also people that would come to her with tears in their eyes about how, like, her paintings, it gave them calm. They would just come into her apartment and they would feel like they just stepped into a temple and go, I have felt this weight for years and I just felt lighter as soon as I came in here. And they wouldn't really understand it, and she would just sit with them and get to know them. She would take people off the street. She would walk through Central Park and just see someone and be like, this person looks like they need someone to talk to. And she would like have them over for lunch. In New York City, an 80-year-old woman just
Do you think that is mostly naive or just...
She was very smart. That's the thing.
Did she have a gun? Is
Nope.
that what's happening?
No, and she was so physically weak she could never possibly have defended herself if she got into a situation.
That is so fucking risky.
Yeah, but she never had a single issue that I know of. Because she would have, like, there were people that were over that had like come from gangs and stuff, but they would like change their life because of her. She was truly this Yoda, like, once in a generation kind of person. But in any case,
I need to ask you a couple questions.
Oh, is this the game?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. I already forgot. I'm glad you.
This is such a hard turn. I wanted to make it natural, but whatever, this is how it is.
It's like Jan from Tripod. He just goes, okay, next topic.
Yeah, exactly. We're too old to waste time. Yeah. This is a will you rather kind of game.
Oh dear.
Talking about the masses, the audience, etc. Will you rather write the best musical ever made and now being able to share it, like this person that you were talking about before, like he just wrote stuff and they found it years after.
Charles
or
Ives.
Write super boring tunes that everybody listens to for eternity.
Well, I mean, if those are the only two options, I would go with the first one, despite the fact that, to me...
Are you sure? Because the second one brings you money.
Yeah,
everybody listens to it. They just consume forever whatever you created.
There are occasional examples, though, of composers who write something that they're not proud of, and then it actually explodes and becomes their most famous thing. And they basically
Titanic?
No, I think Horner was quite proud of Titanic, and he should have been. It's a brilliant, even the song. People that shit on the song are just trying
Yeah,
to seem
I'm talking
cool.
about the song. Yeah.
No, I mean, look, it's my attitude is like, if you think you're so much better, you go fucking write a song that platinums 11 times
That's
and
crazy.
wins an Oscar, and also.
By the way, I don't hate it. I just named it because I know people don't like it.
He believed in it to the point he was told not to do it, and he basically wrote it in secret.
Wow.
So it, like essentially against James Cameron's direction, and so to me, yeah, that one is a like. Bottom line is there are an example from classical music is Ravel's Bolero was a piece that he himself I don't think took particularly seriously, but it's by far his most famous piece. The one that's this very, very repetitive with the dun da 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 dun da 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 dun da 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 dun with the dun dun na 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 na.
Ah, wow.
Na 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 na. Ravel wrote 1,000 pieces superior to that, and within his own lifetime, that was his most famous piece, and still to this day. And he had a kind of resentment about that, and because it was like,
crazy.
This is not a serious piece. You know what I mean? Like
that's crazy. Yeah.
So I would hate the idea of something of like resenting the audience and thinking they're stupid because they ate the trash, and I have meanwhile sculpted this thing that's brilliant.
That is so funny.
So it's difficult because the premise of the first answer, I don't to me it's not actually even a valid question from the standpoint of like, can you write the best piece ever that nobody knows about? To me, it's impossible to know it's the best piece ever unless the audience like tells you it's the best piece ever, which does then contradict the thing I was just saying of if you write a thing that you think is stupid and the audiences go crazy for it, maybe you're the one who's wrong. Maybe it actually is great and you just think you're superior. So it's complicated, but I still... It's hard pill to swallow of a piece that you're genuinely not proud of becoming super popular and being like, this is what I'll be remembered for, is this thing that I'm actually kind of embarrassed by. I know it sounds very like stupid, pretentious artist type to go, I prefer to have obscurity. It's like everybody says that, and then the moment they have the opportunity to be famous, they'll immediately take it.
I think, what name comes to mind? This Rebecca girl that you showed me the other day.
With the Rebecca Black.
Yeah. We were, but just so you know, guys, we Austin showed me.
Oh, it was just this hilarious back during the sort of golden days of one of the eras of golden days of late night comedy, when Jimmy Fallon and Stephen Colbert had this kind of like rivalry between their two shows, and they were raising money for charity, and it was like, if you donate $1,000 or whatever, $10,000 to Jimmy Fallon's thing, I will go sing Rebecca Black's Friday on his show. And
so we were watching that. Yeah, we were watching that like last week. Like, it's very fresh in my mind. So I just remember that. I just remember that. But yeah, she made that song that everybody hated. So I guess that's a perfect example.
It was one of those things where she didn't even write it or anything like that. Her parents hired this guy who had a service where he would basically just like create a simple song, and then for a small fee they would shoot a music video, and then you had like a little thing
whatever
I think was cool.
It happened.
But this one went just inordinately viral.
Yeah, well, there you go.
In any case,
so you prefer to be an obscure artist, as literally you are an obscure shadow right now. It's hard to talk to you like this, by the way. Like, Austin's in front of this window, and he's like being so... Ooh, that's much better. Thank you. Because it's hard to talk to you if I don't, know your expressions.
What is your answer to this?
I mean, if I know that I'm gonna get money for whatever shitty work I'll do it. I prefer the...
So clear.
Well, you know me. Can you close the...
It's literally like the movie Philomena with Judi Dench and... I can't anymore.
Okay.
And what's his name? I'm blanking on the actor's name, but that there's this great scene where they're in the car and she plays this woman who was like very religious, and she had lost a child, was like taken by nuns or something, and they're in the car and she says, "Do you believe in God?" And he says, "Well, I mean, it's an interesting question. There's a lot of philosophy to unpack, and it becomes a question of what is God, and also what is the importance of belief, and is it a matter of if it's fulfilling or if it's this or that?" And he goes on, and he's like, "So yes, I don't know. What about you?" And she just goes, "Yes." It's such a great little scene.
Yeah.
I love that movie, and I feel like that just happened now with us.
Yep.
So okay, so question two.
You like to dissect every topic ever, which I love. I don't have anything against it, but yeah, I'm a simple girl. I am okay making a piece that is not amazing and it gets famous. If I get money to keep creating, so be it. I like that. The second one is, would you rather have the most creative ideas every single time you eat 2 full spoons of sour cream?
Oh my god.
I love sour cream, by the way, but Austin, I don't know, he has some weird relationship with it.
I hate it.
Or
yeah, it's weird because I'm a very open eater. I have no allergies. I like everything. I will eat any style of food. I love adventurous. I love eating things I never had. I love trying things that are new. I love when I go to a restaurant and I don't even know what something is. There's very few things that I am turned off by. But sour cream and mayonnaise are both to me just nasty. And
yeah.
So if I had to eat 2 full spoons, 2 even, and then I would have the best. I mean, look, we suffer existential crises for our art. If that's just a different form of suffering, then I guess I would take it.
Oh my god, yeah, well.
I wonder what kind of weird fucking Doctor Strange magic would require creativity to come from eating sour cream, but I would take the trade.
Okay. 2 full spoons of sour cream, or every time you stick a needle below your feet.
I mean, that's very easy. The sour cream is an infinitely more desirable. I don't like when my feet are touched.
Really? Like 2 full?
I hate needles. First off, I faint from needles. And second, I do not like things touching my feet. Like, it's very uncomfortable. So it's the worst. Like when I see movies where like someone steps on a nail.
Not even like a little, not even a
black
pinch.
Out.
Like a tiny little, like just
I'll take the
poking.
sour cream.
Really? Wow. Okay, that is unexpected.
I'm amazed that's unexpected. Yeah,
it is unexpected.
You know how I am with needles. I fainted from fucking COVID shot.
You're so dramatic.
So embarrassing. It was awful.
Oh, well, you're alive, which is great.
But yeah.
You didn't toss your own blood this time, so
that's
good
true.
for you. Okay, well, that was easy. Here's another. Would you rather have a collaboration with another composer that you think his work is trash, but the guy is like this super great person, or have it with a composer that is like freaking genius but will make the experience miserable for you?
I think at the end of the day, probably the second one, because I think I would learn a lot. It's very valuable to me to have a great hang. I love when people are great to work with, obviously, who wouldn't? But it's very valuable to be a great collaborator and feel like you're really bonding with someone and blah, blah, blah. All that is what makes things sustainable. Like if the question was enter into a lifelong partnership, then, I would go with the person who I get along with, even if I'm not crazy about their work, because you're making a lifelong gamble here. But if it's this one-off, like I have to, write a score with some mad scientist genius who's a real pain, I just think it would be so worth the frustration of that for what you would learn from them and from what,
Right.
like kind of insights. It's like looking over the fence into the next house yard where you see a process that you don't normally get access to. And if I had that, if I had the option to work with someone like that, that feels extremely worth the suffering of their personality.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, I'm right there with you. I guess it is, for me, is more debatable, but I guess I'm leaning more into the second as well. But yeah, I have a short fuse. I guess that will blow. But
That just means that you're the difficult one that is being debated here.
well, I'm the genius then. I don't mind.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there you go. That's fine. It's really accurate.
I guess that's why we're making this work out.
Yeah, exactly. I'm learning a lot.
Here. This is the last one. Would you rather have a niche community or circle of fans that deeply enjoy your work as an artist? Or the entire world consuming what you do but hating it at the same time?
Hating it?
Yeah, like they just hate it. Whatever you do, they hate it. But they do know about it.
I mean, I don't even know what an example of that would be. I guess maybe that my heart will go on, but the thing is, I would argue that they don't actually hate it. People who want to sound smart say that, but the vast majority don't. They cry and they think it's beautiful, and they just have a hard time admitting that they love it for some stupid social pressure kind of reason. But I don't know. I do value the idea. I like the idea, and I've been embracing this, like with my private Discord through Bandcamp, of like a small community of people that can get to know each other and really kind of support each other and
Yeah.
see each other in a more substantive way and not in a way that's like, oh, I read this about you on the internet, therefore I feel like I know who you are. But like, no, we've talked, we've spent time together.
Yeah, I guess it comes down to quantity versus quality.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so to me, that I like smaller, more intimate relationships, but that's, it's not an easy question necessarily, because like you said before, if having something be omnipresent and worldwide enables you to do other things, that's pretty valuable.
Well, there you go. I guess that was a little thing that I was writing like
That's
minutes
great
before.
questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for preparing that.
So you prefer the sour cream? I'm very impressed.
To needles in the feet, yes. Jesus, the distinction is easy.
Oh my god. Well, there you go.
All right, well, thank you for listening, and once again, hopefully this was interesting, and very curious to know people's takes, in the comments and that sort of thing. Very curious to know people's answers to these sorts of questions.
Oh yeah, actually, yeah, you guys, you can actually, please, I'm very curious about your take on these questions, and if you want to tweet, go ahead and let us know. What do you prefer, if sour cream or needles? Sour cream is amazing. But no, thank you so much. You know that you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at brushesandkeys, and we hope to see you the next Thursday, hopefully.
Yes.
So yeah,
All
bye
right.
bye.